to approve it. So you have the oversight there to watch everything for you as well. Now let me address a little bit of Gerard's comments. He just got through telling you he does not disagree with having a bond issue. Okay, he just disagrees on the amount. Like I told you, I kind of have some concerns there too. But I think we need to move forward. We can't wait 6 months, 8 months, and try to do it. Prices go up every day. Give you an example. When I was starting driving, I was paying 30 cents a gallon for gas. Yeah. And in 2016, I paid $1.75 a gallon. I just looked at the cheapest price I could find today. It was $2.31, and it's going to $2.88. And I think it's going to go much higher with the pipelines being shut down and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me, has anybody out there got an electric bulldozer where we can do this work next year? You know, I don't think they make one yet. So we need to move on this thing. We can't sit on it and keep saying it's going to take care of itself. We've already been there for 50 years. It's time to move forward. Now, as far as the rates and what it's going to cost, if you make a combination of a bond and increased rates, what's the difference? It's costing you money, except for one thing. A bond is a tax, and it is tax deductible. If you raise your water rates, it is not tax deductible. It's just an expense. You know, and on that line, some of the social media things have been saying, well, why don't we just not do a bond issue? Why don't we just raise the water bills $100 a month and let everybody contribute for 15, 16 years, and then we'll take it off. First off, I've never seen anything that went for 15, 16 years get taken off. I don't think it'll happen. Yeah. Secondly, if you look at the only one that I think we really need to be focused on today, that's the $6.7 million bond that we would be trying to go for quickly so we can get started on these projects. Take care of the storm drains, take care of the sanitary sewers, get all those things under control. And once we get ahead of the curve, we can hopefully eliminate or minimize some of the future bond issues that might be required. That's the point. We can't do it at this point because we got to get something fixed first. Okay? I don't know if you guys totally agree with that or not, but that's where I'm at. Let's look at the numbers too. The bond issue, based on the numbers that I saw for this first one, 6.7 million, I believe the number was 0.271, which is roughly $271 per 100,000 in evaluation. So the average house in our subdivision, in our district, is probably going to see a tax increase of somewhere between $480 and $500 a year, and that is a deductible item. Okay? As opposed to the number that I heard, and they said we need to raise our water bills by $100 a month. You know, let me tell you something. I am a retired person. I'm on a single income, a fixed income. Okay, I can't do anything. I can't afford people raising my rate about $1,200 a year to pay for something that's not going to get paid for several years because they won't have enough money to do it. We've got to get it done now. And that's what I think we all need to do. I've been going over some of these numbers and none of them make sense. What I see is happening is people are trying to throw at you that if we took the entire $25 million and we issued it, by the way, the Attorney General has to prove that, so does the TCEQ, and they're not going to do it, I can tell you. But if we did that, then these numbers might have some validity. But they're not right now. They're as much as 9, 10 years away with some of these. Things are going to change. I can tell you right now that on the first phase, I already take exception to one thing that's on there. I want to try to pull it, and it would save us about $80,000 to $90,000 right there. But that is, I want to pull Plant 1 off of that list. I don't want it tore apart. Plant 1, I'll give you 2 reasons. Let me give you 2 reasons. Our Plant 2 and Plant 3 pull from the deepwater aquifer. Okay, they both have plenty of capacity. Plant 1 pulls off putting it back in service, we have two different aquifers we're pulling from instead of one. It's just an extra backup, a little redundancy. So that's one thing. The next thing is that it provides us with enough additional waters. And if we have to take one of our plants down, and we are going to have to the first part of next year, because we've got to redo one of the tanks. And that's going to be down for about 2 to 2.5 months, somewhere in that range. And so we have to have a way to supplement, even though both of our plants 2 and 3 can take care of our subdivision by itself. It's going, you know, when you start watering and doing things like that, or what if you have a failure of some sort, you got to have a backup. And this interconnect we have with this plantation won't do it. They can't keep up with us. We have way too many. They can service about their 600, 700 connections that they've got. And if they go our 900 on top of it, they can't handle it. And we can handle theirs, but they can't handle ours. That's another reason I want to do it. But to do that, right now, it's on the plan. It's going to cost us $133,000, I think it was. $133,000 to dismantle the plant and take it down. We can put a new pump in there for about $44,000, $50,000, somewhere in that range. That's a savings of $80,000 to $90,000 right off the top that we won't have to use that's in that plant. We can use it for something else if we need to. Anyway, my feeling is that we don't have the time to wait. I just told you about how gas prices go up. I don't have an electric dozer. I don't have electric backup. We're going to have to make it, and we're going to have to do it before the prices go too high. I'm actually afraid we have an inflationary spiral that's looking us in the face the way things are going right now. And if that happens, your interest rates are going to go up. I mean, your bonds are going to cost you more. It'll cost us more interest if we have to pay it. We don't even have the 6 months to wait by. We need to go down. I guess that's all I got to say.
Good evening. I'm going to make mine short and sweet. I know we got a time limit here tonight. I've just got 3 bullet points I would like for y'all to think about and remember. That is, one is, it's a perfect time financially if you're going to have to go out and borrow money. It's a great time for us to fix our sewer and drainage issues. Number 2, by fixing our sewer and drain issues, it's going to help maintain our home values. They're not going to deteriorate, and it's not going to make us a neighborhood that people are fearful of moving into because of a bad sewer and drainage system. And number 3, it might keep the city of Conroe from annexing us in 2034. You know, we have a contract right now that they can't annex us until 2034. And if we've got debt, they're not going to want to take on somebody's debt. So think about those 3 points and vote for Prop A and B.
Sure. Sure. So there are a number of people that have signed in to make comments. What we've discussed is receiving comments from those, comments and questions, from those wishing to speak in the order in which you signed in and indicated that you would like to speak or had a comment. You'll see on the agenda, there are 25 plus people that have signed in up to make a comment or ask a question. And so we just ask that everyone, keep them relatively brief to give your fellow residents an opportunity to make a comment in the next 2 hours as well. So the first person who signed up to make a comment was Mr. McElroy.
And if you'll tell me, I know we're off this, but if you'll tell me when he calls your name, I'll do it.
Oh, were they in opposite? Congratulations.
I was surprised.
There you go.
Guess the last page was stacked on top.
I'd like to make some comments, I guess.
You can thank him.
During y'all's conversation and presentations there, I'd like to thank all y'all for being here tonight. I'm Robert McElroy. I live in Railroad Plantation, and I know everyone's interested in seeing problems getting taken care of here. I am too. And one problem I don't want to see is the introduction of debt into our community, individually and as a community. It's debt. When you borrow $15 million, how much is it going to be at the end of the series of debt service, sir? $35 million. That's what we'll be paying back again. I have your schedule, so I know it's $35 million. And that last payment is going to come in what, 2058? 2056?
Right. These are preliminary estimates. I certainly don't know precisely what your interest rate will be. I've done my best to provide conservative estimates. You know, if, as has been stated a couple times, the sooner you're able to borrow, you will be able to take advantage of lower interest rates.
I understand. So borrow again. Here again, it's $15 million, and we borrow at 5.5, I think you have. It's $35 million. Okay? So if it's 3.5, it may be a better number. Along with that, my comment was, can you make those bonds available to people in the community? They want to buy us at 5.5% paper. I think they'll like to participate in that. We think we're good, buy our own debt, and pay ourselves back.
We will receive public bids for the bids.
So that way we're aware that this is going on and we have an opportunity to participate.
Yes, sir.
I should it pass, of course. My position is I'm against it. I think the tax rate should be equal, but it is unequal. We have homes, we're encouraging people to build in this community. If you have someone whose home is $700,000 or $500,000, or you have a new couple that moves in here and their home is $400,000, they're paying 4 times the rate. And I guarantee you it's not the number of toilets, it's the number of people. Okay, so we can't make it a fixed rate. It's going to hurt the guy that's coming in thinking, here, I want to build a home, and look at the rate I'll have to pay. It's discriminatory. Having a flat rate, a utility rate, I think will be beneficial to all to our community. And with that, and handouts I've given, I've run some schedules. I know Julie said 4 years. I think that's probably true, maybe less, before you get the money accumulated to do what you call series, first series of bonds, and be able to carry it through. So there, I looked at, I think, $110 a month addition in your sewer rate, or rather in your water rate. Well, that put us up around $165 for most 10,000 gallon people. I saw a water bill in Houston. It was 14,000 gallons. You know how much that was? $207. I said, Houston. Julie mentioned other areas in Texas that pay way higher water rates. And either way, it's going to hit the pocketbook. And also you mentioned, I think, the 27 cents. I think that's for the first 4 or 5 years, but it steps up to $514 per 100,000. Correct?
Yes, sir. For the first issuance of bonds, which, like I say, is really the best estimate that I can give you, I'm conservatively calculating that tax rate would be 27.6 cents. Now, if additional bonds are issued, it is possible that the tax rate will need to increase, but not until 2028. And of course, we will reevaluate at that time how much it would need to increase.
I think your schedule shows a step up. Isn't there out a period of time?
In 2028.
And what does it step up to?
That's what you said, 51.4
$514 per 100,000, okay? So if you have a $200,000 tax assessable value of your home, not tax accessible, that means you'll have 2 times 514, which adds up to be about $1,100 or $1,100. So if you look at what you pay additionally water, then you'll find it's about the same. And the other thing about the water rate, your board can manage it where, hey, we're running along smooth. Our engineers here have smoothed out the schedule, and we know we can work the schedule. And that's another challenge I would give the engineers. Take additional time to look at the variety of the work done and schedule it out. I look at the schedule y'all have, I know storm sewer.
Mr. McElroy, just if I could
Sure.
mention that, we do have a number of other people that would like an opportunity to speak, so if you could just be
Okay.
conscious of
Well,
that.
take a minute, look at these notes. Y'all have questions. Many of y'all might know Bernadette, know where she's at. That's my wife. And by the way, one reason for that comment, go to rpmud.com and look at the meeting minutes for this year to date. You only want to find one set of minutes that have been posted as approved. So that's what I'm challenging the board to get their minutes approved, get them posted. Also, to make this presentation available.
Absolutely.
Like I did, I've had to do it, and your firm has been very helpful in that, and everybody here should have a copy of this presentation. Can I ask one more question?
Sure. And I'll just say, Mr. McElroy, we made it available to you.
It has to do with the sinkholes. Everyone here who has a sinkhole problem should talk with the engineers and identify on the schedule where you can expect that sinkhole to be fixed.
Most of them have that backfill.
I've got a picture of it.
I think the next person who signed in, I'm having a hard time, Brenda Pine or Jane, 726 Hogan Drive.
Oh, I can talk about it. I just want to know our cars, if we actually own Charleston or RPMUD, that we would want to put that much money into the car.
I can answer that, Julie. Okay. You ready for me? Okay. So my name's Paul Raddick. I'm your trial lawyer. I have the privilege of representing you guys. I've done this kind of work for over 20 years, and I find it fun helping communities address these kind of issues. You do not own the Charleston Park. Our firm was hired a couple of years ago to go take ownership of it. We're in the middle of a condemnation case. We are trying to resolve that. Those things have to take their time to work out. And so one of the important needs for the bond is as sort of a backup. To own it, we have to pay for it. And so that's part of what the issue is. You do not own it. I want this community to own it. I'm fighting hard for you to own it. It takes money to own it, and it takes guts and sweat and effort by your legal team and appraisers and things like that. So you have some of that, but you don't have the funds for it. Give the funds for some of it, and you may be able to raise the funds in other ways, but the bonds are needed in case those funds are required by it. So I would be concerned what would happen if you don't have the bonds, the Series B bonds. Does that answer your question? Yeah, and I want y'all to keep the park. I think it's a great amenity. I'm jealous of that. This community, I don't have anything like that.
Paul, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Also, if we don't own Charleston, we're not going to spend any money on it. I can guarantee you this board is not going to spend a penny on something we don't own. Okay? At least while I'm on the board, I won't. But like he said, we have to be ready to go. It's cheaper to do a bond issue all at the same time than it is to do one now and then one a couple of years from now and then one a couple of years from now. Let's get it over with, let's get it all done, and let's get on with our lives. Okay, we've been down this road for far too long. Okay.
Faye Crawford, 551 Hampton Road.
Gone.
Eric Bunsey, 552 Dunstan. I apologize to anyone whose name I don't pronounce correctly.
Okay. I want to thank all of you for making this presentation and the expertise sitting here. I could see that you're able to make quick decisions because you've got capacity and the knowledge to do so. The problem, though, is you're dealing with the voters over here that are just hearing this information for the first time. And I think much more of this information, we should have split up. There's too much to comprehend. Personally, I don't see this. I can't see what's on the screens. We don't have that information out there. You're asking us to make a very quick decision in 2 weeks. We don't have that ability. I'm not saying what you're saying is right or wrong. I just think we should have given us much more time to digest this and to make an intelligent vote on this, because it's important to us as a community. I do want to make some other comments. Tom, you said something about tax deductible, income tax if it's a real estate tax versus a fee. Right. That kind of went away with low interest rates and the Trump tax. Yeah, most people can't do that anymore, so that's a moot point. I want to talk a little bit about the financing cost. Okay, if the bond was issued tomorrow, is it based on a credit rating? And what is that credit rating?
So this is currently a non-rated district. We don't carry an investment grade rating from Moody's or S&P or Fitch. And this is something I spoke with Director Smith this morning about, kind of, again, looking a little bit ahead in the years down the road. Part of my job as your advisor is to engage with the rating agencies and kind of get you on a path towards an investment grade rating. But I would make an educated guess at this point that this first series of bonds would be sold non-rated. That's not uncommon. There are non-rated municipal utility districts which sell bonds almost every day.
Is that because of our reserves are so low? We don't have the financial capacity to...
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
there's several factors which come into the rating agencies' calculations when they determine whether to make a rating. You touched on one of them, which is one of the most important, which is your general fund reserve and your debt service fund balance reserve. Said differently, the overall finances of the district. Those would hopefully improve as the years went along. Another one is the size of the tax base. As has been said, it's about $164 million. That is certainly large enough. There are plenty of municipal utility districts out there of that size which have an investment grade rating. Another important factor is the diversity of your tax base. Are there, as Julie mentioned earlier, is there any commercial in the district? Does your district have an HEB? It does not. So that's the fact that it's pretty much primarily residential is a little bit of a credit negative. Nothing you can do about that, but that's just a major factor that comes into the consideration of the rating agencies when they look at this.
The 5.25%, I think that you see the projection.
5.5.
5.5 is high.
Yes, no, I would agree. As you mentioned, if the bonds were sold tomorrow, and considering where the market is today and the interest rate environment today, I would agree with you. I think that your district would sell at an interest rate much lower than that. But Davis kind of pointed out the timeline for this process with an application to the TCEQ, which takes 6 months, a couple months to prepare, and then after it comes out of the TCEQ, there's still about 90 more days for the preparation of the offering document, and then the pricing of the bonds, and then the closing of the bonds. So I'm trying to make an estimate of what interest rates will be like, in 2022.
If I can add, that part of the TCQ's review of the bond application is a feasibility analysis. Right? What can the district afford? And there's an interest rate that is included in the application and is part of the feasibility analysis. And the reason that we need to include a conservative interest rate is because if the rate that we would receive exceeds the authorized interest rate, we have to go back to the TCEQ for regulatory approval and cannot sell the bonds at that time. Does that make sense?
Okay, but on the flip side of it, though, the assessed value that you're projecting at 3.5% is not conservative. That's very high. If you look at the last 4 years, it was less than 2%. If you look at the last 20 years, it's probably 2%. So why are we picking a rosy projection at 3.5%? And by doing that, we're actually lowering the tax rate of the 27 cents. It would actually have to be a lot higher if we don't meet that 3.5%.
Let me just say that these are assumptions that were made out for 10 years. And as we discussed, at each point at which the board would consider authorizing the application, we would look at then current numbers.
Have
right?
you ever stressed it for like 2% and see what it would be?
I'd be happy to do that, but the 27.6 cents is based on taxable assessed value that achieves 169 million, which maybe you don't achieve in a single year, but I think, as you say, you know, we would be there in 2 years. So instead of arriving at that number in 2022, you would arrive at that number in 2023. So I'm very comfortable that if we're only looking at the 6,710,000, that a tax rate of 27.6 cents is sufficient there.
Okay, but your projection goes into 2026 or 2027 based on a 3.5% appreciation every year.
Correct. That's when we start factoring in
Historically,
the
we don't
subsequent
have that
bond
in
issue.
subdivision.
I'm sorry, can you say
I
that?
said, historically, we don't have that type of appreciation in the subdivision, so I didn't know where you pulled that number from.
Understood. Looking, you know, you mentioned the last 4 years averages, I guess, about 2%. I'll take your word for that. You know, last year you grew by 6.3%, and the year before that you grew by 13.7%. In a single year, 13.7%.
If I can add, I would just to be respectful of everyone's time, to give those who would want an opportunity to comment. Thank you
And
very
I just
much.
want to say, Eric, this is actually our third meeting. The other two were virtual. So, got two steps.
Crystal Carl? Ms. Carl? 567 is up.
Man, I'm really going to get my steps in tonight.
Our next winner is?
This may be something everyone knows and I just don't, but what happens at the end of all of this to the tax hikes? Do they just stay? How does it work out at the end?
It's a really good question. As the debt service requirements of the bonds are reduced, the rate will be reduced. So we look at the rate on an annual basis, and if you don't have any debt to pay, then we wouldn't levy a tax to pay for any debt.
What is our guarantee that that would actually happen though? I mean, historically speaking, taxes don't go away. So,
I can tell you that there is a fixed maturity schedule for each bond issue, right? So when we issue bonds, we have a fixed, basically, payoff schedule. It's similar to a mortgage in that way, and it's not extended.
if these bonds go into place, are we still going to see rate hikes for the water bills to catch up to kind of what other districts are paying that will therefore save up for repairs going forward once these bonds have all been spent?
You know, I guess I would say that's a difficult question to answer.
Because this is not a temporary problem. This is an ongoing situation.
Sure.
These problems will continue to happen. Maintenance is always going to be necessary. And if what we are bringing in is not going to cover that going forward because the cost of things go up, we understand this. What is being planned for the long term to make sure that we don't end up having to have more bonds when this is finished?
Right. Well, I will say that when you issue bonds, and I can defer to the engineers on this, you hope that in performing large-scale repairs to the facilities, that you have reduced operational costs. But those are difficult to project. And so the budget will be looked at on an annual basis. The district adopts a budget every year and looks at revenue and expense projections and would determine fees on that basis.
I just know no one wants to end up with all of these bond costs that increase their taxes and then turn around and have increases on the water bills that were higher than expected, and it ends up with
Absolutely.
too much.
No, I don't think anyone wants to pay more than they have to. And the only thing I can say is that the members of the board are members of the community, and they are paying the same, the expenses that they vote for, they have to pay as well. So they're not somehow exempt